Hello and welcome to Bisnomics, your weekend's most profitable 60 minutes. I'm Thiru. Latest market intel and expert insight, the two ingredients with which we serve you every weekend so that you can create and have an impact in your industry and in your business. Today, we talk about the pharmaceutical and the healthcare industry. In other words, the cost of keeping Sri Lanka a healthy nation. Health, they say, is the greatest wealth. However, the bill of having this good health in Sri Lanka comes at a cost of more than $600 million. In fact, the pharma and healthcare industry is expected to grow up to more than $700 million and growing at a rate of more than 2% annually. The compounded annual growth rate is expected to be more than 2% towards the end of the decade. But let's go beyond that. Let's try to identify what exactly we can do to make this healthcare sector stronger, a better contributor to our economy, and most importantly, how can we, the Sri Lankan healthcare sector, play a more dominant role in the global healthcare sector. That's going to be our focus today on Bisnomics. And joining me for this discussion is a healthcare specialist, a veteran in the industry, Thiru Sayandhan. Thiru, welcome to Bisnomics. It's a pleasure to have you.
Nice to see you also, Tarindu, and good to join you too.
Thiru, let's talk about the pharmaceutical and the healthcare business globally from COVID-19. What has been the impact on this sector due to COVID-19? One thing for sure, it's a sector that the whole world is having its eyes turned towards. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So, Tarindu, to speak about the impact of COVID-19, actually, we are talking of a virus which cannot be seen by the naked eye, which impacted not just one industry, every industry, just not one nation, every nation. For the first time, I saw the whole world got disrupted. So, because of that, healthcare industry was not an exception. We too got affected. So, initially, how to save ourselves was the biggest challenge. Whether you are a healthcare worker or a patient, healthcare worker need to save himself. It took time to figure it out. So, that was the biggest impact, because to come and serve a patient or a COVID patient, the healthcare workers were challenged to take care of themselves. Coming particularly to the industry, pharmaceutical or medical devices, we had a lot of raw material challenge, we had supply chain challenge globally. Because of this movement, there was so much of disruption which affected the movement of essential medication.
And I believe, sorry to interrupt, but I believe that some of these supply chain interruptions are still there. We see in Europe and in America and even around the world, we see so many ports still having uncleared stocks for so many months, where they are not able to cope with that amount of logistics.
Absolutely. So, even Sri Lanka was no exception. If you take the COVID time, there was one time there were so many shipments which were uncleared, and people were called in to clear it off, and they made it essential services. So, that was one. Second impact, I would say, the demand, the consumption of demand changed. The demand for masks, sanitizer, you name it, it changed. Even if you take the medical devices industry, the demand for ventilators changed, and people started needing these items which are used in the ICU. On the other side, people started wearing masks. I've heard general practitioners coming back and saying the incidence of cough and cold, even some of the asthmatics, it came down. So, that was another impact.
A good impact.
It was a positive impact. And then we saw a shift towards the telemedicine. So, even if you take our own, like there were a lot of pharmacies, they delivered medication where people went and bought. I think first time I heard the postal department saying they delivered 1.3 million parcels direct to the patient, the Sri Lankan government postal department.
Wow.
So,
that's news to me.
So, these are all impact due to COVID. But one thing we saw for the first time being in the healthcare, this was the very first time, Tarindu, I saw all the pharmaceutical industry coming together, everybody focused on developing a vaccine, which I have never seen. I have never seen the entire industry focusing on one area, develop one product to rest of the world. I saw in my life for the very first time. So, that's the impact COVID made to the industry.
Very interesting. And talking about the Sri Lankan healthcare sector and the Sri Lankan pharmaceutical sector, I want to ask you, Thiru, here now, in terms of a common direction for this healthcare industry in Sri Lanka, because today I believe healthcare is more than just about keeping the people in the country safe and keeping them healthy. Today we talk about medical tourism. And we already have so many countries, for example, look at Seychelles and look at so many other, Maldives. They have a very good perception towards healthcare facilities in Sri Lanka, and they come to Sri Lanka to get their treatment. Now, in a situation like this, is there a common direction? Because you are a player in the healthcare sector. Is there any common drive or a common program where all the healthcare sector companies, professionals are getting together and trying to create a common direction, a common vision for the healthcare industry of Sri Lanka? Is there any movement like that?
Okay. So, on this is something which is getting organized. Sometimes when you pushed against the wall only, you group up and do something better. I see three things which are happening positively in the healthcare industry. Actually, there are three chambers. You see the Sri Lanka Chamber of Pharmaceutical Industry bring all the pharmaceutical members together, and they are setting directions and they are addressing the common issues. A young unique chamber has come up, the Sri Lanka Chamber of Medical Devices Industry. It was not heard 5 years before.
Sri Lankan Chamber of Medical
Devices Industry.
Interesting.
So, this is all to do with industry or the medical devices rather. So, they have come together, another set of 60 members grouping together how we can help. Even during COVID time, Sri Lanka Chamber of Medical Devices got together and see how to support the ventilators. They together with the Sri Lanka, the engineering faculty started repairing the broken ventilators and supported the patients.
Interesting.
Because we didn't get new ventilators.
And Thiru, we saw Sri Lankan entrepreneurs coming together to start making ventilators in Sri Lanka as well.
Absolutely. This is again supported by the University of Peradeniya initiative. Two things, they wanted to invent and also to bring back the broken one. What was kept aside, they kept running. The third chamber which has come into place is the Sri Lanka manufacturing industry, where they are focusing on how to manufacture more products locally. So, these are the initiative which will bring things together where we can go in one direction.
And if you look at the healthcare sector, a lot of people when they think about it, even the business community or the entrepreneurs, they tend to think about the medicine, whereas the medical devices also play a very important role in keeping the people of the country healthy, isn't it?
Absolutely. See, medical devices is a silent player. People talk more on pharmaceutical because that plays at the household level. At household level, what you and I take are the pharmaceutical. Preventive like diagnostics, where you do all your tests, which is keeping a key role, are in the lab area. And when the medication don't work, when you go to operating theatre or when you are in the ICU, is the medical devices which is play a key role. But it's two big markets, pharmaceutical on one side, medical devices on the other. These are two big industries around the world.
Absolutely. I want to talk about import controls, because this is for the benefit and the knowledge of our viewers as well today. Because a lot of people are now a little confused on, okay, there are so many import controls, there is a need to preserve the dollar exchange levels we have, I mean the forex levels we have, and whether some of these import controls actually applied for some of the medicines that are being imported. Because let's admit, we do import a lot of medicine, we will come to that on a later question. But did the government import controls that were brought in affect the medical, the healthcare industry in any way?
Thankfully, the answer is no, Tarindu. Simply because medicine and devices were categorized as essential items, and as you correctly said, we are dependent on them, we bring them down, we import them to Sri Lanka. So, and this was badly needed. So, at any given time, the industry was not affected due to the import control rule or the guideline. So, we continuously imported and we brought it down.
Understood. Now, let's come to the extension of that. Thiru, out of our total pharma requirements and the healthcare requirements, I believe somewhere more than 80% we are importing. This comes to me as a bit of a dilemma, and to be very honest, when you compare the past of Sri Lanka, where we have had a very rich history, where we have been making our own medicine, we have a very rich heritage of making medicine, we have some kings like the King Buddhadasa, who was famous for even publishing books about healthcare and medicine. That country today is heavily dependent on imports. Of course, there might be reasons, the economies of scale come into play, we are not a very big nation with a very big population, etc. But surely, simple question, why so much imports, and why is it that Sri Lanka can't really work towards becoming self-sufficient and fulfilling its own requirements or demand?
Tarindu, you said it right. You said more than 80% is imported. I'll put a figure to that. It's 1.3 billion. Approximately, it's 1.3 billion rupees what we import. And also, if you look at the neighboring countries, you name it, like Pakistan, India, China, for that matter, even Bangladesh, who are manufacturing a lot of pharmaceutical and medical devices, we have not gone into the space. Maybe the reason we are too small, a 22 million population, when our neighboring countries produced at a very low cost, we would have found it difficult to compete with them. But the good news is, since of late, the government, it's coming from the stakeholders to improve this. So today I am happy, as I mentioned, Sri Lanka Chamber of Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Association has 22 organizations
that are making medicines here.
They have started.
A first step.
A first step. And also government had mentioned, since 85% is imported, that within the next 3 years, they want to increase this figure to 50%. So the steps are there, and even the tenders for important molecules, when there is a local manufacturer, currently they are not buying from outside, simply to encourage the local manufacturer. So steps are on the question that you asked, we are on the direction, and I think at least if we become 50%, I would say that's a great achievement for our country.
Is it a case where people have just got comfortable with importing and they are not keen to really be making medicine? And also, is there a market perception where Sri Lankan made medicine as kind of not seen to be there compared with some of the imports? Is there any market sentiment like that?
I think in terms of quality, the products manufactured in Sri Lanka commands good quality or a good perception among consumers. I think the main reason we are not gotten there, because if you rewind myself 20 years back, if you allow me to mention my names, those days it was Glaxo, Reckitt & Coleman and Pfizer. These were the 3 names and 3 factories in Ratmalana who manufacture. And with the imports and perhaps with the latest molecules coming in, I think we didn't come out, I think I didn't see innovation coming in. Number 2, the price factor. When large, if you take the Indian population and the cost, how much they produce, I think we could not compete there, which automatically allowed, and we have got into the comfort zone not to trying out those new ventures.
So what you are saying is there was a lack of innovation and not necessarily coming out with some of the new innovative technologies, or rather maybe we failed at adopting some of these new technologies, which unfortunately kept us behind. But had we got into that manufacturing and had we become a key player, this pandemic would have been a perfect economic opportunity for the country, isn't it? Because the whole world is looking for medication.
Absolutely. See, if you take the garment industry, at one point there was a time we are going to do that. And see where we are today. Today we are producing for rest of the world state-of-the-art product. So at that time, if you would have consciously done, I am sure pharmaceutical industry would have also come to that state. But better late than never, I think we are getting there.
Is there an issue with technology in terms of let's say Sri Lankan medical manufacturing or rather healthcare related manufacturing sector? Is there an issue with the latest technology not being developed or latest technology not being adopted, hence our production and supply is becoming inefficient? Do you see a problem like that?
Again, it comes with the direction. I would say today adapting to a new technology is very easy. What's available in another country, it can be brought down pretty fast.
Correct.
Simply because we were not into it, we were not focused into it. That's the reason why we are not there. Moment you start, I think we have taken a start, you will see people adapting to new technologies. You will be surprised, Thiru, we have now even factories which can manufacture inhalers. One time it was thought it's difficult to manufacture inhalers. So we have factories which can manufacture inhalers. So the technology is on. I think where there is a will, there is a way.
Nothing is impossible.
Nothing is impossible.
After the break, we will speak about the vaccination situation globally and what's it really going to cost the world to make sure that we are immune to some extent from the COVID-19 pandemic. Stay tuned for the other side of this break. This is Bisnomics. Welcome back to Bisnomics. We are in conversation with Thiru Sayandhan, a veteran in the field of healthcare and pharmaceuticals industry in Sri Lanka. Thiru, let's talk about the topic with regard to healthcare that everyone is concerned about, vaccination. Now, even in Sri Lanka, some people have got it and some people have not got it. Then there's a talk that the second dose might not be available. There is a news coming that a particular very famous institute in India that makes these vaccines are not able to supply. Even we've seen recently a news saying that India as a country has decided to stop exports of vaccines to a certain extent because they want to meet the local demand. And then there is also talk about so many different vaccines from different countries coming in. The whole vaccine story, I mean, it's something that is very mind-boggling. I'm quite sure even for a healthcare veteran like you, you must be finding this challenging. But do lay it out on the table for us. Tell us, how much is this vaccination actually going to cost our economy, and how will the government actually, how are they planning to bear this cost?
Okay. To address some of the points that you mentioned, if I put some figures behind, I think it was only yesterday I saw the news that the government has, or the cabinet has approved 69 million US dollars to purchase 7 million vaccine, if I may name it, Sputnik.
So Russian one.
Russian one, developed by the RDIF. So that is one value. And I think we purchased 500,000 doses of Covishield manufactured by AstraZeneca at about 2.6 million US dollars. So in terms of value, it is the 69.65 million and 2.6 million which I have seen the government has approved. So in terms of cost, that is the cost.
And then through the WHO as well, we did get a stock, isn't it?
We did. So that is the COVAX program where they took initiative to support a certain percentage in a particular country. I think we got 264,000 doses there. And also it started off with the government of India donating 500,000 doses. Talking about vaccination, I think this is something the whole world needs, and thankfully there are more and more vaccines which are getting approved and being developed, because you see Pfizer being approved, Moderna being approved, now J&J FDA has given approval, there is Chinese vaccine, the Russian one. Sinovac is the Chinese one. So there are many coming in and the whole world needed it. So that's something which in terms of demand and supply we need to manage, where in Sri Lanka the government has taken the initiative to manage and how to give it. In terms of cost, I would like to say at this juncture, as Sri Lankans we are blessed. Irrespective of the economic status, Tarindu, you and I can walk into any hospital and get global standard of medication or any healthcare treatment. You go to, if you want to perform a bypass surgery or any surgical procedure or ICU or any lab facility, you and I get it free. Same way, I think we are all blessed irrespective of the economic status. We are getting it free and there is a cost attached to it, and the government is bearing at the moment. Still it has not come to the private sector.
Correct. So is there any discussions about possible plans where in the future people will be able to, let's say, go to the private sector and get this vaccine? Is it something that is being considered as at now?
It is being lobbied. To be honest, it is being lobbied, but at the moment we even ask the question, if the private sector has developed the vaccine, why not private sector give it out? Yes. I think it all comes to that one single question of the global demand and the global supply. Even from the supply side, they don't want to give it to everyone, so things go out of hand or out of
and then it will become just about the profit and the money, and so many poor people will get left out.
Absolutely. And second, even from the government point, they want to give the essential. In Sri Lanka, the rule is above 60. So to have that control, they are managing it. When more vaccines come out and when things come under control where the supply meets the demand, I am sure that's the time we will get approval. And I am sure it's a matter of time that the private sector too will get its approval, where people can walk into the hospital that you want to and get your own vaccine. Actually, I am waiting for that day.
Understood. And in terms of this vaccine that has been developed through, I know this is a bit of a technical area, but just for our information, when a vaccine is being developed for a particular illness, I believe what they do is they study the virus and they build something that can kind of build antibody. Do we hear these terms? Would you be able to just share some details with us on this?
Sure. So indirectly you're asking how the vaccine would work or how it's developed. So it's all about how you introduce a external factor into your body and how you develop this antibody so that you resist the virus outside.
So it's like you have your body prepared to fight the virus when it comes in.
Absolutely. And I think there are about 4 types of viruses. One thing you use to do that, there are about 4 types from the little knowledge that I have. One is the whole virus itself. where you weaken the virus introduced to your body so that it does not cause that disease, but it allows to provoke developing that antibody. Understood. That is one type. Second is a protein subunit, where you use a protein subunit or the protein spikes. So, you introduce that into your body and that start developing the antibodies in your system.
Very interesting.
Another one is a viral vector, where you take a substance of the nucleic acid or the DNA introduce into the system. So, that start developing the antibody. Fourth one is the nucleic acid per se. So, you take the DNA or the RNA, the two nucleic acid, you introduce that and then you develop. So, even if you take, say if you take move away from the COVID, even if you take antibiotics for bacteria, if you get ill, you need to take antibiotics. So, there are so many categories of antibiotics you take, Tarindu, which affects the bacteria in different way. One will break the cell wall, other one will go and attack the nucleic acid. So, similarly, even vaccine, this is where the innovation come in. They have developed 4 types. So, sometimes they say good to have different types. So, this vaccine is the virus is also foxed. If you take the same way, this virus can develop to that type.
If everyone has got it the same way.
Same way. So, different people coming with different kind of attack mode, it helps to bring the pandemic down. But it is an important thing, if you take a first dose of a particular vaccine or a particular type, that is the antibody you start developing in your body.
And the second dose has to also be.
Yes, the second dose is your booster, where you build up the immunity. There you got to take the same type. That is why it is very particular. If you take a particular type of vaccine.
So if I take AstraZeneca as well, first one at the second dose as well, I need to have that.
It has to be that. Otherwise, you are introducing 2 types and both would be at a particular level of antibodies developed in your body.
Very interesting, Thiru there. Thiru, let us talk about coming back to these different types of vaccines, and they talk about mixing these vaccines. So, as you said, so we have got the AstraZeneca first, then we have got a particular amount of doses from Sputnik, and then even Sinovac is being planned to be introduced. What is the level of impact? Because we do see worldwide that the cases have kind of dropped, and even in Sri Lanka, I think once the vaccination process has started, there is the talk that okay, yes, the amount of cases are going down. However, some people are also saying no, there is not enough tests being done. I would leave that to your judgment there, because you would know better. But my question is, in terms of this mixing of vaccines, I think you have partially answered this as well, what kind of impact will it have in our immunity systems? And there is some talk about some countries wanting to ban some vaccines, saying that we have had these kind of issues, these kind of blood clot cases, etc. But having said that, a lot of medical experts say, look at the human history. Whenever there has been a major illness and a vaccine has been introduced, there has always been a few cases like this happening, and out of millions of doses, you are talking about, let us say, very few such exceptional cases. What are your thoughts on these areas?
Yeah. So, Tarindu, if you take the R&D process, unlike any other industry, in a medical or a healthcare industry, the R&D process to develop a new molecule, it is so complex. And it is not easy. If you take anything new, it takes 3 to 4 years to come.
It is not like coming up with a new computer.
Absolutely not. Even a new computer, you ask those people how long it took from the innovation desk till it come out, it's commercialized, how long it takes. But unlike a computer which can be given, if something goes wrong, you can pull it back and say this batch recall. But a medication or something injected into your body, you can't take that chance, because you are dealing with human life. And here we have a pandemic. Last year, I think in March or February, which was announced, and the whole world wanted the vaccine. There were some people, doesn't matter what it is, let me take it and let me come out of it. I have to get back to my normal life. And as I said, this is the first time we saw the entire healthcare industry working for that.
Correct.
So, you got to speed up. So, in doing research, big data analytics, various technologies were used, how to speed up. So, in this, one of the things is when you develop a medication or a vaccine, safety profile has to be highly established, and this is something any manufacturer should work. But in this case, things has to be in a rushed up manner. So, even any vaccine,
the clock was ticking.
Clock was ticking, and any vaccine, even well developed vaccine, you will see in a small letter word or in the pack insert will say the benefits will outweigh the risk. So, that is the call that you take. Even today, either I can stay at home am I going to take my jab or not, or am I going to safeguard taking a little bit of risk? Thankfully, no major side effects up to now from what I heard, nothing had been reported in Sri Lanka. So, it is a chance that you make, and even the percentages you would see if you take different vaccine, one started we had 62%, another one said 92%, another one said 64%. And again when the vaccines came up, Tarindu, one said take the first dose and after 4 weeks you take it.
Yeah.
And with comes a real life situation where I think in UK, they gave the first dose to everyone irrespective of the 4, and then all of a sudden the report came, better you take the second dose after 12 weeks,
Yeah.
the immunity goes up further.
Now, in Sri Lanka, they said you when people go to get the vaccine, they were told that you have to come after 10 weeks. So, I think they are trying this out, they are figuring out what's the best mechanism, isn't it?
Absolutely. So, when they try, they feel, so one thing, instead of 4 weeks when you take the immune booster later, they found the efficacy was greater.
Nice.
So, there is a bit of a trial and error going on, but I think this is something we needed. See, the situation we were 3 months back and where we are now, definitely there is an improvement. I think even in Sri Lanka, you and I, we live a normal life.
And the Western province schools are reopening. Life is slowly coming back to normal.
And we are talking without the mask. When did you do that last? Right? So of course, we have to take precaution. I am not saying we need to talk without the mask. We have to take safety precaution so that we together bring this down. So, this was something needed. Of course, when something in a hurry or in a rush when it is done, it may have its own side effect.
Correct.
So, one would take a call, what is the level it had brought in? If it is 0.0001, still media can take it to public, what is the impact? So, up to now, I do not think any of the vaccines which had got banned. So, up to now it is in circulation.
Correct.
So, it is an ongoing
Even
trial as
some
well.
of the vaccines in Europe that some European governments are trying to ban, I think their own medical research councils looked into it and said, no, there is no major issue like that, you can go ahead. And as you very correctly said, the term is the benefits are quite heavily outweighing the risks and the dangers. And also, Thiru, I believe when Sri Lanka is getting the Sri Lankans are getting their vaccinations, even for industries like tourism, I think it will have a positive impact, because tourists will always want to come to a country where the people have been vaccinated and they are there is a very lower risk or a lower probability of them contracting this disease.
True. See, we need to get back to normalcy because we are not rich or we do not have so much in reserves where we can ignore and keep quiet and move on. Life need to move on. So, if you need to move on, we have to get back to normalcy, be it the school, be it the economic cycle, the private sector, the government sector. So, we need to find the quick answers. Sometimes we may not get that expected 100% level of answers. Up to now, what we have got, I think we are moving on. So, this is something which is happening and I see happening now, Tarindu.
Excellent to hear that. The government policy required to make the healthcare industry of Sri Lanka a stronger one and a better contributor to the economy. What does the government need to do in terms of policy decisions? Let's talk about that after this short break. This is Bisnomics. Welcome back to Bisnomics, your weekend's most profitable 60 minutes. Today we are in discussion with Thiru Sayandhan, who is a veteran in the healthcare industry, and our focus is on the Sri Lankan healthcare industry and more importantly about the vaccination situation in Sri Lanka and worldwide. Thiru, any major industry, I strongly believe, requires a good government policy, a policy that enables growth, a progressive policy that helps the consumer, helps the supplier, kind of keeps the balance going. In your view, and I want you to be very detailed on this one, what is the government policy that needs, or maybe government policy decisions that are required to make this healthcare sector a stronger one, and especially Sri Lankan manufactured medicine? Now, that's something which you are all talking about, because we've realized that we can't always depend on other countries. The import bills are extremely high. And what is the government policy that is there right now to promote Sri Lankan made medicine, and what steps do you think are needed to move ahead?
Okay. So, there are two parts of the question. To see how the medications are being regulated, I think we have a very stringent regulatory process. If I may explain, Tarindu, if you have to bring any pharmaceutical, any pill, any tablet or any ointment or any cough syrup or any medical devices, could it be a small device as a ventilator or a CT scan or a MR scan, any of these medical devices or a pharmaceutical, if you are bringing into Sri Lanka, this need to be registered by NMRA, better known as National Medicine Regulatory Authority. and to register that you got to produce a big file which is known as the dossier, where you got to provide data, because as I said, these are used in human life either for consumption or for diagnosis. So, anything which need used for consumption for treatment or as diagnostics for medicine or used in an operating theatre or an ICU need to be registered. You got to get a certificate, and that is given only for 2 years. It can be available in USA, it can be available in Australia, any part, but in Sri Lanka the first license is given only for 2 years, and then you get the extension for 5 years, and after that you got to again submit a new set of documents with latest data if you have to continue with the product. So, that is how our medicines, meaning pharmaceutical and medical devices industry, have been regulated. That is to ensure you not only bring the quality product, you also bring the efficacious product, but also establish safety profile.
And you are it's stringent measures, but it is for the benefit and for the betterment of the Sri Lankan public.
For the public, for the patient who is using it. So, that is the ultimate goal. So, that is why we have such a stringent process. Sometimes we get frustrated due to the timelines, but the purpose or the objective is that. So, it is being regulated. I would say we are one of the countries which we are highly regulated when it comes to medicines. Answering your second part about manufacturing, I think already we discussed, that is where we were not focused. I would say
we ignored, let us be blunt, we ignored it.
Could exactly, maybe we are very small, 22 million population. Even any investor would think, Tharindu, is it worth for me to put up a factory, and whether can I supply this for how long? For example, some mention, I do not know how far it is true, the demand for normal saline, which is easy to manufacture, and of course, those factories are coming up. Somebody who has the state of the art factory can finish that manufacturing in 1.5 months. So, what are we going to do in the rest of the 10.5 months? So, here comes the question. So, that is where
export.
Exactly, this is where we need to come. So, here when we want to export, we have our neighboring countries starting from India, China, Bangladesh and Pakistan. So, we need to be competitive.
And their cost must be more like half or even.
They are less, but why not? So, this is where we need to be export driven. But thankfully, Tharindu, there are, since I think last 5 years or so, there were a lot of focus even from the government. So, even recently the government had announced they are allocating a 400-acre pharma zone in Hambantota. There was another report where the government has announced they are allocating another 100-acre land in Anuradhapura. Now, this is in addition to what we already have. As I mentioned earlier, 8 to 9 manufacturers, today there are 22. So, it is increasing, and even government is setting up guidelines even for tenders. The locally manufactured products have been given priority and they are prioritized on that. So, that way I think we have started. As you said earlier, we may be a little late in the game, but I think the focus is on
better late than never.
Better late than never.
Thiru, let us talk about the maximum drug price policy, because I believe that in the previous government they did bring this up about having a maximum price policy for most of the medicine. Is this still in effect, and what was the impact of that on the industry? Because there is a lot of concern. So many companies did bring out the concern that, look, at that price we can't bring a quality product and sell to the customer. Then that created the question, was it pushing lower and cheaper substitute medicine to be brought in, which ultimately puts the lives of the patients in risk. But what exactly happened there, and is it still in effect, and what was the impact on the healthcare industry?
Okay. So, if I rewind 5 years back, Tharindu, earlier what controlled or what regulated the Sri Lanka pharmaceutical and the medical devices industry was the CDDA, Cosmetic Device and Drug Regulatory Authority. That which got changed somewhere in 2016 to NMRA, National Medicines Drug Regulatory Authority. It is they who control the price, and I think if I remember right, it was in 2016 October. The first price control came and the industry was shaken up. And today, if you take the exact numbers, to be precise, I think there are about 71 pharmaceutical molecules which are price controlled, and 4 medical devices, which includes products like stents, intraocular lenses, glucometer, strips, they are all price controlled. Good thing, Tharindu, is though it came as a shock, the good thing to the public, or if your mama or my mama is taking medication, what they got at a higher price, there was a price ceiling, they are getting it at a controlled price, the affordability increase.
Same medicine.
The same medicine. So, somebody talking of whether the quality dropped, is a cheaper version coming, low quality, I will disagree. I don't want to mention brand name, it is the same product.
Okay.
It is the original product which was 3x, 2x or whatever the product when the price ceiling. Today is the same product which is coming, and in some instances manufacturers gave special approval to Sri Lanka, because simply because they would have simply walked away saying Sri Lanka is a small market, but still large manufacturers, actually I am not mentioning names, they gave special approvals, hey, we want to be present in Sri Lanka. So, sometimes you see stickers in a particular pack, this pack is only for Sri Lanka. Why? Rest of the world, if somebody take that in a suitcase to Australia, they can be making 5x with that pack because it is price controlled. So, they have put a label, this is manufactured, this is meant only for Sri Lanka.
Understood.
So, how we overcame as an industry was, there were few who would have taken it out, but majority they remain. We found ways and means how to operate within this price control. But coming back to your question from a public point of view, the public gain. So, they got quality medication at a lower price.
And this policy is still in effect?
It is still in effect, and still they are lobbying. And from a chamber point of view, Tarindu, the pain points are the price control which came at a lower dollar rate. So, say if just rewind ourselves 1 year back, we were at 182. Yesterday it was 202. So, that 11.6%, the dollar depreciation, if you are not addressed,
yes,
this is where the industries will get affected. They will come to a point how to survive.
And,
so,
and then unfortunately, like it or not, that is when the corners begin to get cut.
Absolutely. So, that is where people would decide. So, two aspects, it is a double-edged sword. On one side, the patients are getting benefited with this,
yes,
on a consumer side of point of view,
but supplier side.
Supplier side of view, on the industry point of view, you need to have, I mean, these are private organizations. You
Correct.
need to make a profit.
Absolutely.
Okay, we agree. We don't want to make supernormal profit, but to survive and sustain and to progress, and even for the R&D clock to ticking. So, if just imagine, Tarindu, if the R&D, none of these pharmaceutical companies didn't have money to research vaccine, who will bring the vaccine today? So, we need to contribute, part of the profits go for the R&D as well, and in pharmaceutical it's a bigger chunk.
For sure. And Thiru, I believe even the vaccines that are being brought in, you need proper cold chain facilities. There is a lot of very high expenditure, high capex logistical requirements as well for the pharma sector. So, as you very correctly said, it's something that has to be very carefully balanced, and especially with the dollar depreciation, the dollar appreciation or the rupee depreciation happening. I strongly believe that definitely the healthcare sector must be under tremendous pressure here. On a final note, I want to ask you this question. Do you think that we have enough skilled labor for the pharma and healthcare industry of Sri Lanka? If not, what needs to be done to develop and build these skill levels for this sector?
Tarindu, from my personal point of view, I think with regard to the numbers or labor, I think we have enough. What we need is that focus, as I mentioned earlier. More than that, what we need, if you have to develop this as an industry, especially in the areas of pharmaceutical or medical devices, we need to think differently and we need to build differentiated products. Then only we can go rest of the product. I think we need to move away from the Me Too molecules which are produced in Pakistan, India or Bangladesh. I don't think it's an era has come to compete. I think it's too late. We need to come out with innovative products, differentiated products.
Leapfrog.
Not
just try to go passing.
Yeah, I don't think those numbers, I don't think we need to go there. And we are a high literate country with the population is high literate. So, let's use our intellectual property to come in producing new products. So, what we need is technological advancement. We need more innovation centers. We need more research and development. At university level, there should be pharmaceutical research, pharmaceutical subjects introduced into the curriculum.
Is it not there in the university level as at now?
It is coming in. Even pharmacology has come in, and there are about 7 faculties which are offering, which was not the case. Earlier, even pharmacists, it was a diploma. So, thankfully, now there are 7 faculties offering degrees. So, we need to get into this research and development, technological advancement, and find a way how effectively and efficiently we can compete with rest of the world will be the answer if we have to move forward in the pharmaceutical and medical devices industry, Tarindu.
Thiru, you are someone who is not ashamed to admit how you started your career. You very openly said how you started at the lowest possible level, and then you built up you come up the ranks today to be a CEO, and we are very happy to see your journey. We wish you all the best in that. On a final note, what would your advice be to anyone who is watching this show, who is planning to enter the healthcare sector, maybe a student who is doing a degree or an after A-level student who is thinking, what kind of a sector should I go to? Why should they be considering the healthcare sector?
Okay. So, when you take a decision on industries, someone told me once there are sunshine industries. One is healthcare, education, entertainment. Where things are moving, not only in Sri Lanka, rest of the world, we are going in for aging population, the young are getting sick, there are new pandemics,
Correct.
There are a lot of diagnostic areas. So, this industry is going to develop, leap forward, and it's going to grow.
Thiru, let me interrupt you there. This COVID-19, the pandemic, it's something that has basically, the worst one I think that has come after the Spanish flu back in the 1920s. But they say the next pandemic is not going to take another 100 years, it will come much more faster than that.
We don't know what it is. Even the new variants we don't know. Now, you and I may be living happily thinking that we have got the SARS-CoV-2, that's the vaccination we would have got. But we don't know what the new variant is. Virus is something we don't see to our naked eye, and we don't know how it's mutating.
Correct.
So, definitely.
And every day there are like new viruses being created in various, in some of these wetlands and some of these areas, isn't it?
True. So, there will be a lot of mutants and there will be new diseases, a lot of unknown things. So, the industry per se is going to grow. So, whoever want to want to come into this industry, I would say this has a great future, rewarding future, and also it will give you satisfaction because you are bringing better quality of life or you are saving a human life, which will be the ultimate happiness, Thiru.
Definitely the saving of a human life for sure.
Yes.
Excellent thoughts there, Thiru. The pharmaceutical sector of Sri Lanka, how can this sector, the pharmaceutical and the healthcare sector, how can it be a better contributor to our economy? What policy decisions do we need, and what potential would that sector hold for you as a future profession or career? This, and also about the global vaccination situation, how this is being distributed, and so much more very valid insights were discussed today in Bisnomics. I am extremely thankful to our guest who joined us today, Mr. Thiru Sayandhan. Thiru, thank you very much despite a busy schedule for having joined us. It was a pleasure to have you on the show and wish you good luck.
Thank you, Thiru, and pleasure too from my side. All the best to you.
And with that, we wrap up today's episode of Bisnomics. This is your weekend's most profitable 60 minutes. I'll see you with the next episode.